Welcome to the Health Revolution, the show that leads you to a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity through a sea of fads. We reveal the science behind the strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery, the keys to an enriched life. See inspiring interviews with the champions who've conquered life's challenges. Are you ready to unlock your potential to live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest together. If you want to change the game, it all starts now. Welcome, everybody. You are watching the Health Revolution, and we're excited that you're joining us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and no matter which way you're tuning into us, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We want to stay connected to you. Also, at the bottom of your screen, there is a tab for show episode notes. Be mindful of that. There's some important information about today's episode. And I'm excited about the talk that we are having today. Today, it's all about the power of microdosing and psychedelics and how that can be impactful in our lives in a very careful, strategic approach. What is it about microdosing and psychedelics that we don't know that we could benefit from? Can we take a closer look to see the benefits and have this careful conversation? My guest today is someone who is well-versed in this area. He's been studying this for a time. He is an expert, and I can't wait for you to get to know him. First of all, take a look at this. Meet Cesar Marin, a dynamic entrepreneur, former CNN producer, and thought leader in the psychedelic space. Cesar is revolutionizing the conversation around microdosing and personal transformation. As the founder of Cultivating Wisdom, he empowers individuals over 50 to explore mindfulness, alternative healing, and the profound benefits of microdosing for unlocking their full potential. Cesar's innovative approach blends professional expertise with personal insight, fostering meaningful connections and a deeper sense of joy and growth. Today, we'll discover how microdosing and mindfulness can create transformative change in our lives. Cesar Marin, welcome to the show.
Adriana, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, truly honored and humbled to be on your show, The Health Revolution, which is amazing. And I love it how your intro, you talked about mindful mastery. And that's part of the thing that happens when you microdose. You're able to master your mind a little bit. So I'm really excited about this conversation you and I are going to have.
Me too. I am curious. Obviously, you wear several hats. You had the hat of CNN producer, so you know the behind the scenes of piecing together programming that has impact. What led you to the path of embracing microdosing?
That's a great question. And truly, it came out of a recreational curiosity. My delve into microdosing and into psychedelics wasn't like some people have a healing experience, an awakening experience. At the time when psychedelics come into my life, I was dealing with a cannabis dependency. So psychedelics came to my life a bit accidentally, but it completely changed my life incredibly quickly. Microdosing actually came into my life just a couple of months before I was about to be laid off at CNN, where I had been for 25 years. I'd been a producer at CNN for most of my adult life, or more than half of my adult life. And it just so happens that at the time when I was about to have a transformational situation in my life, something that was just going to completely take away what identified me as a human. I was Cesar Marin, the CNN producer, that was going to be taken away. And it was just so happens that at the time, psychedelics and microdosing come into my life, and it had an incredibly profound change almost immediately.
And what is it that we don't know about microdosing and psychedelics? I know that obviously the first thing that came to my mind when I first heard about it is I'm thinking the 60s, just all of the, and the lights and the feel and the vibe, but not totally understanding that. What's the history behind microdosing and has it been changing societal's landscape as a beneficial tool?
I love how you answer that, had you asked that question, because you talked about people's perception of psychedelics, right? And most people think psychedelics or hear the word psychedelics, and right away they envision the 60s, right? The flower children, more peace, all love, no war type situation. And I like to tell people this isn't the psychedelics of the 60s. This is really, truly the psychedelics of Johns Hopkins University, of NYU, of Emory University here in Atlanta, of Harvard, of Stanford. And it was just so Johns Hopkins University that a couple of years ago, when a lot of the psychedelic studies, a lot of the studies into psychedelic medicine had gone underground or had been stopped by the government. This was a time back in the 60s when they were doing studies on alcoholism, on depression, and all those studies sort of went underground. That it wasn't until Johns Hopkins University had a really wonderful study on end of life care with people who had profound experiences with psychedelics, and that opened up the door a tiny bit more to more exploration. And that's why I tell people this isn't the psychedelics of the 60s. There's a lot of, health institutions. There's a lot of, educational institutions that are studying psychedelics and how they can be used to benefit, everything from, like I said, depression, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, dependencies. Um, they've found ways that psychedelics have been able to open up the mind in therapeutic, in small doses, which is what microdosing is, to really help people, connect with their now, with their presence, with their sense of where their mind is. So, it's the psychedelics of the 60s that image that we have is completely changing. It's changing day by day, and it's changing by companies investing a lot, millions of dollars into how to take these molecules and really adapt them to help what's ailing us here in humanity.
I'm curious about your personal experience from cannabis to evolving and seeing the value behind microdosing. And I do want to talk about the careful framework that goes with that.
Mm, hmm.
Now, with cannabis, obviously, we're here in Colorado. We've been familiar with cannabis, but what has been the what's distinguished the two for you? What made you really want to step away from cannabis and some of what people will say has benefits to
Mm.
to microdosing and what that brings to the table?
Well, first, I want to preface by saying that I'm not promoting or suggesting that anyone does anything illegal. Right? There's obviously states where this is all completely illegal, and one has to know what their legality is in the states where they are. And like everything, this isn't for everyone. Do your homework, and make sure that you're aware that you're educated in what microdosing is, because microdosing is totally something different than having a huge big psychedelic experience. So for me, when dealing with this cannabis dependency, I realized that it was a lot of escapism. Cannabis to me was a way to escape. It was a way to numb what I was feeling, whether it was, not depressed. Well, obviously I had a job, but just going through the motions or just the normal everyday things. So cannabis for me was this bit of escapism. When psychedelics come into my life, and it was crazy because the first big experience I have with psychedelics, with psilocybin, with mushrooms, it was the Monday before Halloween, October 2022. And just everything opens up. All my sensory feelings open up. I could see clear. I could smell clear. I could hear crisper. But it was this sense also of there was some, what they would call tripping. There was some distortion of objects and of movement. And it was crazy because as I drove home that first day, I'm still under the effects. My conscious starts talking to me and starts asking me, "What are you doing? Like, why are you doing this?" So there's this bit of consciousness that came with that psychedelic experience. And as I get home, and I'm just in wonderment of what had happened. What was it that these substances did that make me feel the way they did? From, wow, for the first time, really sensing what it was like to breathe and what my hands were like, and just being surrounded by beautiful people. There was this sense of maybe through psychedelics, there is more of an awakening or an enlightenment than maybe another substance where it is more to get high, right? And that's really what the microdosing and the psychedelics did to me. They came to me at a moment where I was struggling badly with this dependency, and the microdosing was able to really open up my consciousness to say, wait a minute, why are you doing this? What is the purpose of using the cannabis? There's no purpose to it. Where the microdosing, there was always a purpose to it. There was a purpose of, manifesting what was in my mind. There was a purpose to being more present with myself and with, the people around me. It became, more evident that through the microdosing, right, I could open up my mind a little bit better, to see clear, to hear clear, which made me more productive. It made me more creative. So in that sense, all of those things that psychedelics do. I mean, at the end of the word psychedelic comes from the Latin mind manifesting. And if there's something that I've definitely sensed in every psychedelic experience that I have had, is that it does help manifest the mind. It helps manifest the mind in many ways, sometimes good, sometimes bad, right? And that's where, part of that intentions for what you're using psychedelics for, that integration, the work afterwards that comes along with it. So there's a big difference. And to answer a bit your question, to me, what was the difference in the cannabis or the psychedelics? To me, the cannabis was an escapism. I was just getting high. It was just, there's nothing to it. With the psychedelics, there's a little bit more purpose. There's a little bit more enlightenment. So there is some sense of, I'm using this more as a life performance enhancer and not an escapism from reality.
When you were first introduced to microdosing, was that the intentionality that was shared with you, as in the dialogue you were having and it was being shared with you, that you heard people say, or a person say, now the intention is this is going to give you a greater connection? Was it more experimental, and then this was like a self-discovery? I'm curious about the intentionality and the
Hmm. Hmm.
conversations that surround microdosing that you've had.
It was for me, and like I said, it was, that initial part when I had that first big experience, that I get home and right away. I mean, I worked at CNN for 25 years, so as a good journalist, I start to delve in and research what happened. And then I come across the fact that yes, psychedelics are being used for depression, for anxiety, for PTSD. And it's then that I come across this term microdosing. And I'm like, microdosing, what is microdosing? And I start reading more about it, and I start reading how people are using these small amounts of psychedelics. So in other words, if a normal therapeutic or recreational dose of psychedelics is anywhere between 3, 4, 5 grams, the idea of a microdose is that it's a tenth of that. So usually it's 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams. So it's very small, very subperceptual. But it was then through figuring out, what microdosing was, how people were using it, that it was a small amount, that there was a protocol to be on, that then I just, and it's almost like I suggest to people, like, please don't microdose because you heard Cesar Marin, is microdosing and he started a new business and he turned his life around. Do some homework. Find a community. Find people to talk to. Find someone to ask questions. Find a guide or a spotter. There's wonderful books on microdosing, whether it's an introductory level book like mine or a much deeper research book that exist. There's wonderful documentaries. There's a great documentary called How to Change Your Mind, which is on Netflix. Michael Pollan's based on Michael Pollan's book. It's a 4-part series. One of them is on psilocybin, on mushrooms. So, I devoured that. So I became a connoisseur of what microdosing was before I actually started the microdose. Because then what I realized is that for microdosing to really work, one, you have to have intentions. There has to be an intention of why you're doing this, right? Second, this is a process. This isn't just, I'm going to, take a capsule or eat a small piece of mushroom and then my life is going to be rainbows and unicorns. No, there's some work to be done. And part of that work is what they call integration. Like, how are you integrating what you're living, what you're sensing, what you're doing while you're on this microdosing protocol to make yourself a better human? So it's a sense of, do your homework. Like really, microdosing is a really interesting topic. Now, the thing is, it's very young. I mean, this isn't something that's been studied for ages. And it's also something that, obviously there's a lot of pharmaceuticals that, wouldn't be fans of something that people could use and then get them off of their depressive medicines or their anxious medicines or their medicines for PTSD. So for me, what really worked was really becoming an expert in microdosing, really reading the books, seeing the documentaries, talking to people, that then I got a sense that I was really empowered to do this the right way. I sense the problem is sometimes when people just say, "Oh yeah, I heard someone was microdosing, so I'm going to try it. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get a chocolate bar and I'm going to eat a piece of chocolate bar, and then what happened? I didn't feel anything. I didn't sense anything. Oh, this doesn't work. I'm not going to do this again." That's sometimes what can happen with a microdosing practice. And that's why, again, like I said, it's good to have a guide, a spotter, someone to talk to, someone who's microdosing, that you can sort of, bounce off information. So it's find your people. There's a lot of different groups out there. So, one, like I said, do some homework. I was diligent enough. And yes, it came because of the background of being a producer and, a journalist where I wanted to find out what was going on. But I think that especially with something like psychedelics, it's important that we do our homework and we know what we're doing.
So then, just to clarify for viewers, so microdosing is defined as, taking minuscule and maybe gradual conservative doses that are considered extremely small. And then the
Hmm.
term psychedelics obviously are elements that have impacted mood and that have impacted. And so would you say that those two are distinct, that they're not necessarily one and the same, that psychedelics are elements that have been known to impact mood and even behavior, I guess, if you will, with
Hmm.
intentionality, and then microdosing is the gradual adjustment of the amount that is being that's being consumed, or that is to be consumed. Is that correct?
That's yeah. So, what I like psychedelics, right? Whether it's a large dose of therapeutic, what they call a heroic dose, right? A dose that is really going to take your brain and turn it, like completely turn it, and maybe go down realms or go down, situations that aren't normal, right? That aren't normal, and that's why sometimes intentions is really important. What are the intentions that you have? Sometimes the problem I find with people is, oh yeah, I tried psychedelics. Really, what did you do? No, I just put my hand in the bag, took some mushrooms, and then figured out what happened. That's not smart. So, the way I like to analyze this, people, is sort of, if you take a big dose of psychedelics, it's like you take your brain and you twisted it and try to sort of rejiggle it, right? A smaller dose, what they call a museum dose, 1 gram, 2 grams, it's tapping in a little bit further, but not all the way around. Microdosing, right? It's just tapping and touching on those new neural pathways, right? To sort of maybe think a little bit different. As humans, right, we have the sense of this default mode network that we're always keying down. That's how we're programmed. So microdosing helps you lay down a little bit new sheet of snow where maybe you can say, you know what, let me try this track instead of the tracks that I'm always going down.
That's a great analogy. We have more to cover. First, we're going to take a commercial break. Stay right there.
So in the calm bag, it has GABA, theanine, and taurine. So theanine, which is B1, which is also in our B complex, but it also helps with the stress response levels. It also helps with the neurological transmitters in our brain. Combined with the GABA, and then you add taurine to it. Taurine is a non-essential amino acid in our body, but it's found in our heart, our brain, and our eyes. So in my personal opinion, it's very essential in our lives. but taurine has a calming effect as well. When I was battling all my AFib issues, I was taking high doses of taurine because that would help with my AFib. It would help with the palpitations I was having. And it also helped with the anxiety of having the palpitations because I knew what was going on. And so taurine helps a lot with that as well. So those three together create such a wonderful concoction that just really just calms people down.
Introducing Launchpad, the perfect partner to help you launch your dream project to the world. We know that time is of the essence, and we're here to help you make the most of it. With Launchpad, you'll get access to the most advanced digital tools and strategies to take your idea from a mere concept to a fully fledged success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or a seasoned pro, we have everything you need to make your mark in the world. Launchpad, your ultimate launch partner.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about the power of microdosing and psychedelics. Our guest today, Cesar Marin, he's the founder of Cultivating Wisdom, and we're diving deep into these topics. It's great to have a careful conversation around this to understand and see what the benefits are. Can you delve into some of the benefits that you have observed through studying the concept of, through either even personal experience, the conversations about microdosing, especially for over 50, and what are some of the benefits behind that?
That's a wonderful question, especially for people over 50, right? Over 50, we have this sense that there's a couple things that happen. One, a lot of people over 50 suffer on age set depression, right? A lot of us have this anxiety of what's the future going to look like? You know what I mean? What's going to happen 5-10 years from now? We have this sense that our kids are all grown and they're not there as much as they were before. So there's this sense of, empty nest, loneliness. And what microdosing has done for me and people who I've worked with is really get this sense of what I call the power of now, right? The realization that life exists only in this moment that we are, right? The past are just distant fond memories. The future is just really a fantasy. So microdosing has really helped me and the people I've worked with really get that sense of concentrating on the present moment, right? That sometimes our thoughts of the past, right, can get to us and cause some type of depression, that sometimes those thoughts of the future can come up to us and cause anxiety. So the people that I work with, it's a sense of mindfulness. I mean, the purpose of microdosing for me and the people that I work with is that real true sense of mindfulness, right? Of that moment where someone cuts you off on the road and your first instinct is to sit there and blow on the horn and, shoot them a bird and get upset and get angry. With microdosing, it's helped me a bit to sort of go, okay, wait a minute, hold on a second. Why am I going to get angry? You know what I mean? The anger that I'm feeling, that person's not going to feel. Maybe they have an emergency. Maybe they need to get wherever they're going quicker than I am. So there's this real sense of mindfulness, of present mindfulness, right? Where sometimes we find ourselves, lost in thoughts of if I would have done this, if I would have done that, or if I do this in the future, if I do that. And we lose sight of really the power of the present moment. And psychedelics, for me, that's been the biggest catalyst through the microdosing, the sense of, realizing that everything happens at this moment. Nothing happens in the past and nothing really happens in the future. Everything happens in this present moment. And it's through that practice of mindfulness along with other things. I mean, it's like I've said before in the first segment, microdosing isn't just I'm going to take a capsule, or I'm going to eat a piece of chocolate bar, or I'm going to have a piece of mushrooms, and then my life is going to be better. There's work that needs to be done. There's intentions that need to be written. There's a lot of other small little tools that can be used along with the microdosing, whether it's meditation, whether it's cold plunges or cold showers, whether it's journaling. It's all these small little other tools that, along with the microdosing, give us this incredible, powerful toolbox of human skills that we can use for the betterment of who we are. So for me, the biggest key or the biggest takeaway for microdosing for myself and for the people I work with is really that sense of moment mindfulness, of the mindfulness of this present moment that only exists.
And, I'm curious about one thing. Obviously, as we get older, and you brought up a great point about, just being over 50, and you touched on the depression. The other practical issue that we face as we're getting older is cognitive function. And
Correct.
sometimes it affects more than we realize. How does microdosing play a role in addressing cognitive function or the struggle that somebody has with cognitive function being older?
That's awesome because there's now as we progress, right, there's more and more studies being done, right? How is microdosing helping? And there was this test that they did on people over 50 called the tap test, which is to figure out, neurologically how many times people can tap during a 1 minute period. And it was evident that the people who were microdosing had were tapping more than the people that weren't. Their brain was connecting in a different way than the people who weren't microdosing. And it's through that regeneration of neural pathways, of neuroplasticity, that microdosing has the power to do, that helps us reconnect those brain waves that sometimes don't aren't firing on all cylinders. But and it's also the other things, right? It's the mindfulness, it's the meditation that goes along with it. It's a whole practice, right? But it has been evident, and studies have shown that people who microdose over 50, their cognitive skills adapt a little bit better than people who aren't microdosing.
What's been the consensus in the clinical space for doctors, not necessarily researchers, because it sounds like there's traction being gained on studying and how it's impacting. But what's been your experience talking to clinicians, doctors, specialists when it comes up in conversation, or has it come up in conversations with doctors? What's their take? What are you noticing out there?
I think that there's still a lack of information, right? There's a lack of education. I personally, when I went to get my last physical, I told my doctor I was going to be microdosing, and they're like, "What is that?" So there's this lack of understanding, right? And I think also in the medical, especially in the medical field, there is this tendency to, let science prove it. Let science be the judge and jury. And right now, I don't think there's enough science that has been done yet to really have a true judge and jury from the medical community, right? There's sense of people saying, well, is it a placebo effect? You know what I mean? And if it is, as long as you're doing something different, as long as you're changing, as long as it's making you feel better, then what is the difference of having a placebo or not having a placebo? So I think that especially right now, where again, doctors are so reliant on the formal medical formula that exists, right? That sometimes something that's holistic, something that's different, something that, wait a minute, where's the science behind this? Who are the major companies that are, studying these substances? I think that's going to take a little bit of time to catch up. I don't think right now there's a doctor that's going to say, okay, yeah, don't take this medicine and microdose instead. I don't know if we're at that point yet. Maybe a holistic doctor, but I still think that people should address this with their doctors, address this with their family practitioners to say, hey, you know what? I'm contemplating microdosing. I've done my homework. I've done some studying, and see what the doctors say. It's sort of, I think that, like I said, right now, every doctor's going to make, their own judgment. And look, I've met a doctor who told me, look, I've been microdosing, and since I've been microdosing, my surgeries, there's things in surgery now that I'm so in tune with what's going on, but I can't tell anybody. I can't tell anybody in my profession that I'm microdosing because they're going to think I'm crazy. So I think that the verdict is still out medically, but there is enough research, there is enough clinical studies that are being done to show that the evidence that microdosing is definitely helping people.
Can you talk about some of the safety parameters, best
Mm-hmm.
practices that are universal to approach this from a very careful standpoint to when someone is in a position where the decision is made based on what's going on in their life, that this is something they're embarking on? Can you talk about safety parameters, best practices that allow that person to have a good experience that they can still, that adjustments can be made that would be most appropriate for them?
That's an awesome question, because there's a lot of lack of information, right? So what I tell people always, again, educate yourself, right? Do some homework. There's, like I said, there's several books. That's always the first place to start. And then once you realize this, you realize that, one, it's all about dosage, right? Dosing is incredibly key. And there's a difference between 200 milligrams and 250 milligrams. And that's where citizen science comes in, and where citizen science has really helped me, where you can always, there's an adage in psychedelics where it says, you can always take more, you can never take less. Right. So the sense of, you know what, let me start with 50 milligrams, right? 50 milligrams is an incredibly small amount of psychedelics. Obviously, there are people that have a really low threshold, and that can, have them get a sense of feeling something. I tell people, try that out for a couple of weeks, and then go up a little bit, go from 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams, and do some citizen science by journaling, what time you're dosing, when you're dosing, how much you're dosing. It's really important, to keep a record of your microdosing as you're doing your citizen science. I think it's really key and fundamental in you finding your perfect dosage, your sweet spot. So, with dosage, it's always start really slow, start low, increment yourself up slowly, you know what I mean? Progressively. Don't go from 50 milligrams to say, what does 250 milligrams feel like? In most instances, especially for myself and people who I've talked to, the sense of too much, when you increment that way, most people, what they sense when they've gotten to that too much level is, you're feeling a little bit yawny, you're feeling a little bit tired, but with a smile on your face. But there's never a sense, if you're incrementing up small, there's never a sense of things are moving, things are melting, things are warping. That obviously, like I said, is a much bigger dose of psychedelics. And again, I like to preface this, but again, I'm not suggesting or advocating that anyone does anything illegal. Again, be mindful of your jurisdictions, be mindful of the laws where you live, because there are places that this is legal, there's places that it's illegal. So, definitely make sure. But if there's something that you're interested in, like I did, do your homework, do your homework. Definitely share this with your health practitioner. It's better that they know what you're doing. They might suggest not to, they might suggest to, but definitely share with them. And like I said, find a community, find like-minded people who are also microdosing, whether it's online, whether it's locally. I know that there's a lot of cities that have local psychedelic associations with incredibly wonderful people. This isn't all people who are listening to the Grateful Dead or like I said before, this isn't the psychedelics of the 60s. There's soccer moms and entrepreneurs and lawyers and a lot of people who were using psychedelics for as a benefit, as a life performance enhancer. So definitely make sure that you do your homework. Know that you always start low. Figure out what protocol works for you. Not every protocol works for everyone. I mean, I love using the example of someone I worked with who the most common protocol that's used is called the Fadiman protocol. And it's based on Dr. James Fadiman's research that he did. When a lot of these studies went underground, he decided, I'm going to do some science with people, and I'm going to have people use a small amount and have them bring back information. And he found out that people on 1 day on, 2 days off were getting some of the best benefits, right? Sort of, it's, a dosage day, a transition day, then an integration day. And it's encompassing these 3 days, 1 day on, 2 days off, that people have gotten a lot of benefits. Well, someone I worked with, I had put them on that protocol, and then they came back saying, like I get a sense of something's working in my brain, but those other 2 days, I'm not sure. So we changed up his protocol and went a little bit more on the Paul Stamets protocol, which calls for 4 days on, 3 days off. And he came back to me a month later. His productivity at work had gone on 50%. He just felt a lot clearer. He felt a lot happier. So it's about, one, doing your homework, making sure this isn't just, hey, I'm going to start microdosing tomorrow because I heard some radio show and they were talking about it. definitely do some homework and find, try to find people who are like-minded who are doing this.
So I'm curious about the legalization, or just obviously there are areas here in the United States where it is considered legal and then others not. What is your take on the more recent landscape? How is the legalization evolving? What is that looking like these days? And what are you noticing on the forefront of the future of microdosing and psychedelics?
Legally, it's state by state, right? Obviously, Oregon right now has legalized therapeutic psychedelics, as has Colorado. There's areas, DC, where you can grow and share and gift psychedelic plant medicine. So each jurisdiction is different. Every state has some type of measure or bill that people are trying to push through. So it's we're on the cusp, right? We're there. People are talking about this. This isn't, like I said, this isn't the psychedelics of the '60s where no one was talking about it. We have congressmen and legislators, trying to find ways, whether it's through helping veterans or trying to see how we can sort of put this into a medical uh, component that really can help people. So I think that, one, the fact that there's money being put behind this, there's a potential for this to grow, and just there's more curiosity. People are asking. Now, obviously, there is this gray underground that exists, and it's still going to exist. It's really difficult for it not to exist because it's already there. Because therapeutically, for an insurance company to say, hey, you know what, we're going to pay for someone's psychedelic treatment, that's still a far time away. So we're still going to have these models where people are going to find someone who's a facilitator, someone who serves medicine, who they can go to, who might be a little bit cheaper. So I think that the important thing right now is that the conversations are being had, right? These honest, open, and objective conversations about the potential of psychedelics and where they're going. It's important, right? Because it's I have this adage of, yes, I would love to see psychedelic therapy available to more people and more accessibility to safe and effective medicine, and why is it not happening? And I ask them, well, why aren't we up here? Well, the reason we're not up here is because we're right here. 12 months ago, 2 years ago, we were down here. No one was talking about psychedelics. Now, Joe Rogan just talked about it recently. Everyone saw, Diplo on the Anderson Cooper countdown talk about how he had done a little bit of LSD, before his performance. So the conversation is there. People's curiosity is being poked at. And that's when then we need people who believe in this, believe in plant medicine, believe in potential, to then reach out to your legislative members, reach out to your congressman and say, look, studies are going on. Look here in Georgia. They just approved $5 million for the study of psychedelic medicine. So it's really being at the forefront, being a voice in the potential healing of psychedelics that we need. We need more of these voices.
And an important point to make, we are going to take a quick commercial break. Stay put. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you. Hi, I'm Adriana, and welcome to Fit Bites. Today, let's talk about stress and how it can wreak havoc on your body if it's left unmanaged. Now, when you're stressed, your body releases cortisol, a hormone designed to help you handle short-term challenges. But when stress becomes chronic, those elevated cortisol levels can cause some serious damage. High cortisol over time can lead to weight gain, especially around the abdomen, weaken your immune system, disrupt your sleep, and even contribute to anxiety and depression. It can also increase your risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and even cognitive decline. This is why managing stress isn't just about feeling better, it's essential for your overall health. Start with simple strategies like deep breathing, meditation, or yoga to help calm your nervous system. Physical activity is another powerful tool to lower cortisol and improve your mood. And don't forget to prioritize quality sleep. Your body repairs itself when you rest. Now,